And this next fireside chat, ladies and gentlemen, is going to be about shaping the future of digitization with IoT and cloud. We're going to be talking about empowering digital transformation with IoT and cloud, how today's technologies with the cloud and how IoT can help every business become intelligent, secure, and connected. We'll be talking to you about enhancing operational efficiency with IoTs, as well as cloud being the key enabler of transformation. We've got two speakers alongside a moderator as well. We'll start off first by introducing our first speaker. Coming up on stage shortly, we will have Dr. Terence Goh. He is the SVP Technology at Yinson. He's also a subject matter expert listed on IPI Enterprise SG and is a faculty professor at both NUS and SIT. He's also often referred as the father of military robotics in Singapore. That is, of course, Dr. Terence Goh. He is the Senior Vice President Technology, Yinson. We're also going to be having Jacky Koh, and Jacky is IT and Data Analytics Director with KrisShop. And Jacky, of course, is the Chief Technology Officer with 14 years of experience with identifying, qualifying, and building, and of course, implementing technologies, and has also founded an IT development agency in 2008 at just the age of 22. We'll also be joined by our moderator, Elaine. Elaine is Head of Digital Transformation and Acceleration with Zuellig Pharma. Hello, Elaine. And Elaine, of course, handles driving businesses, operational, compliance, risk, and security strategies for the products within the digital and data solutions team. Let's start out first by inviting our colleagues up on stage. First off, let's extend a nice big round of applause for Jacky and Dr. Terence Goh. And we have Elaine coming up as well. I was saving you for the moderator chair. Fair enough. Hey, Jacky. Welcome, welcome. Please take a seat. Be comfortable. We can shake hands, of course. Hello. Once again, let's extend a big hand for Dr. Terence Goh as well. Welcome, sir. And we're going to hand this over to Elaine. Elaine, the stage is all yours. One more time, ladies and gentlemen. A nice big hand for all three of our colleagues here on stage.
Thank you, Carl. All right, everyone, a very good afternoon. I think we're in between lunch, us and lunch. So just bear with us. We'll try to make this exciting. You've seen their bios, very impressive veterans in this digital transformation space. I think we'll start off with a bit of a fun fact, on my right. So your left over here, we have Jacky. Jacky has a twin brother. Looks like him, shaped like him, face like him. Only the wives know the differences. Okay, so the fun fact was that the two of them can interchange their face technically onto their mobile phones. It still recognizes with the Face ID. So if you have a twin and you haven't tried that, maybe it's a good time to try. I think one of the findings was when they had to go back to Jacky's office to pick out something. It actually works. Yeah. So for you, those who are looking into security systems, Dr. Goh and I were also having a small chat over there. Maybe you have to take this into consideration, right? How do you detect? It's not a digital twin, it's a real twin, yeah? Over here. Okay. And on my left, Dr. Goh, he is passionate about cycling. When I called him to discuss about the panel, he was like, hey, just talk to me, I'm cycling, I was like, okay, I was thinking like, okay, this guy is probably in the gym, cycling, maybe doing that kinetic motion to, I don't know whether to help his autonomous electric vehicles or not. But he just told me he was actually on the road and PCN cycling. Oh my God, okay, and then we're still discussing about the topics of the panel today. But in his mind, I think, professor at heart, father, as we call him, safety viewpoint is of essence to him, right? So, the IoT, whether it would trigger alarm for cyclists and pedestrians, just as some of the cars with the intelligence, before you signal, you already know, your side mirror will probably tell you there's something next to you, right? So I think he is very passionate about that. And I think that quite nicely sets us into today's topic, right? Shaping the future. We are already, somewhat in the future and more into the future. of digitization with IoT and cloud. I'll ask both sides to share with us. Maybe we start off with Jacky first. What's your definition or personal definition of digital transformation? We transform. Yeah.
Thank you, Elaine. So my personal definition of digital transformation, actually, we have to look at it from two different aspects. One is the digital aspects, and the other part is the transformation aspects. So if we talk about transformation, it's about the change and the purpose that the organization will want to do. So without a purpose to do something, then of course there's no need for the transformation part. And of course, from the digital perspective, digital is more of an enabler that is part of the process of the whole transformation journey. So it helps you to digitize a lot of the manual processes and stuff like that. So that is my personal definition of how digital transformation is.
Great. So that's moving towards the future. So don't stop at digitization. If that's just converting things to be more into a digital space. But these guys are looking into digital transformation. And Dr. Goh, what about you, your definition of digital transformation?
Well, I don't have a personal definition on digital transformation, but in the late 1800s, you have Lord Kelvin, the one that you use for your temperature. He says that if you can't measure something, you can't manage it, And this one also expounded by Peter Drucker. So as an engineer myself, basically it's important that we are able to measure down to the granularized resolution for the information that we need to generate subsequently, so that we can make very informed decisions. So that's where we think that digitalization comes in. And it's important also to link digitalization with IoT, because IoT, as you all know, Internet of Things, you have different sensors that come in, and you have to orchestrate them so that you can provide the correct information where you can make business decisions ultimately. Yeah. So that's where I talk about digital transformation.
Great. Thanks, Dr. Goh. Setting into that way, a lot of us here would probably have, IoT. Somewhere in a phone, something is turned on, because with the power phone. Myself, the heart, there's an IoT, I have a device with me. It links back to National Heart Center. If I pop and drop, they will tell me. So for the both of you, maybe starting with Dr. Goh first, wide range of experience there. And what do you think the type of industries or business, because we are represented by a variety over here, can benefit from IoT maybe the most? And if you could give some examples, like why? Yeah.
Yeah, okay. The current work that I'm doing are in 2 or 3 areas in the perspective of Yinson Green Technologies. So as you all know, Yinson, we are the 6th largest oil rig builder in the world. And I'm in the Yinson Green Technology, where we try to reduce carbon footprint. So to do that, we go into e-mobility, and part of the e-mobility was also developing the infrastructure, back-end infrastructure, as well as the mobile apps. So that is part of digitalization, and I spent the last 1.5 years building up this charge EV infrastructure. If you go to your mobile apps, you can see there's this mobile apps called Charge EV, single E. Yeah. So that took up a lot of my time to build this infrastructure from scratch. There were countless number of migrations. So to answer your question, I think basically what we do is we want to, ultimately with IoTs and with digitalization, we want to enhance the user experience. So it's important that we build the mobile apps. Yeah, of course it was basic at the very first cut. but the features were evolving, and we are trying to reach out to customers, getting the feedback, and building more and more features to make sure that we are very good charging basically a good charging point operator in both Malaysia and Singapore. So to date, we are the largest charging point operator in Malaysia, and we are moving into both Singapore and the region as well. Having said that, then also in parallel, we are working on microgrid systems. So because for your charging stations is becoming more and more power intensive. Right now we are talking about up to 300 kilowatt charging systems. Recent LTA tenders, they want to deploy more and more charging stations for your electric vehicles, but they found there's a shortage on power supply. So there's a dearth on meeting the power supply and demand. So microgrid will come in very useful. That's where I'm looking at. And of course, in parallel with the universities, we are also working on autonomous vehicles right now. So we are rolling out shuttle services probably in the university next quarter, next year. Yep.
Right. Very exciting, right? This whole EV space is technically the up and coming. I think we are all trying to propel towards that spectrum, and the ESG obviously in mind. We'll be quite interested to later on find out more about the autonomous vehicles. But over to Jacky. You've come from consulting for a long time. You've walked through many businesses, and even in your exciting space with KrisShop, the retail. Why not you share with us how IoT has helped you, or through the digital transformation with IoT and cloud, the spectrum and the evolution of where you've seen companies going through that journey in different industries and leading up to your own current one. Yeah.
Okay, so thanks, Elaine, for the question. So I think with the experience that I have implementing systems for a lot of businesses, a lot of businesses can actually benefit from the usage of IoT and stuff like that. So one example I would say in my early years of my time when I was doing my own business. So there was one wholesaler that they had a very long process. So in the morning, they will actually go to the hawker centers to actually take up the orders of the customers and deliver the items. And this would last for around a whole day until around 5+ p.m. Then they go back to the warehouse. They start to pass the orders back to the warehouse, and the warehouse started packing. And this whole process took all the way until like 10+ p.m. in order for them to end work. So this is a very manual process. Why? Because they go there, take a piece of paper, and they start writing every single thing down. Different customers have different pricing as well. So just one bottle of soy sauce may have a 5-cent difference. Right. So everything they have to memorize it by heart. So what I implemented for them was using a handheld point of sale system with a Bluetooth receipt printer that is connected to the cloud, and it sends all the information back to the warehouse. So the moment they take up the order, they don't have to remember the pricing of the customers. They just enter the customers, and everything will just come out from there. They just take the orders. It goes back into the warehouse directly, and the warehouse people can start picking and packing, stuff like that. So this whole process actually helps them to cut down a lot of their operations wastage and increase their productivity. And from the aspects of maybe KrisShop, not sure. I believe everyone would know KrisShop. KrisShop is part of Singapore Airlines Group, and we are the in-flight sales business. So we used to be a department under SIA. So that's where 3 to 4 years back, we see an opportunity in the ancillary revenue part of things. So one of the key focus that we have was the redefining travel retail, because in the recent years, a lot of airlines has actually stopped their travel retail part of the business. That means there's no more in-flight sales card in the planes and stuff like that. So it's going down slope in that sense. So one of the objectives that we had was, like I mentioned, redefining travel retail, and that's the purpose why we actually went through a 3 years period of transformation in the organization. One thing that we or one use case I would like to touch on will actually be, since we are talking about the in-flight sales card. So we have around 200 sales cards that is flying around the world under the Singapore Airlines. So the time taken for us to pack a single sales card in the old legacy process of the old legacy system is very manual. So there will be a pick list that is printed out from the ops. They will take the pick list, manually look at it, pick and pack the items from there. So they will pick everything and then go to the sales card and then start packing every single item one by one. So the packer has to look at the item and make sure it's the correct item to pack it, and then the card go outbound. So this whole process will take, just to pack one single sales card will take around 40 minutes. So imagine 200 sales cards flying around a day. That is the amount of time that needs to spend, as well as the manpower and resource that is needed to just complete that whole process. So with IoT, we introduced RFID technology for all the inventory tracking, as well as the whole picking and packing process, as well as the whole warehouse operation. So this actually helps to cut down the whole process from 40 minutes to 15 minutes to just pack one sales card. So what the pickers and packers will just need to do is to take all the items, go through a RFID scanner, move it from the warehouse picking location to the sales card, and then put everything in there. With just a scan of the whole RFID, they will have known every single thing that is inside the sales card. So this actually helps us to reduce pilferages as well, because we track every single item all the way down to the single level SKU. And for the inbound process where the sales started coming in, the cards started coming back, we will be able to know what are the sales, what are the items that is missing, what are the items that is being transferred between the two different sales cards. So this is one aspect of how actually IoT benefited our organization for KrisShop.
Okay, I think you've heard from both technically. One is the essence of accuracy, information, make decisions, and where Jacky has also shared its operational efficiency. With this in mind, where IoT, labeled together with the RFID, I think for some of us, in this space where we need to move inventory goods, it's really a much more efficient way, less painful. Use your label resources a lot wiser. I will shift gears a bit as we talk about IoT and that link to cloud computing. And we know that there are different kinds of cloud options out there, right? So, and both of you veterans in a digital transformation space, that's kind of the bread and butter of your life. Share with us a bit more about the different types of cloud and the options of it, and maybe why you choose one over the other, and give us the examples, right?
Yeah, maybe I can start first.
Sorry.
Yeah. So let's say we backtrack to last year in February, when we wanted to develop the back-end infrastructure, and we wanted to do it very fast, and we want to minimize on capex costs. So there was some contemplation, and then we make, of course, the decision to go onto the public cloud. So we had a choice on whether to go on AWS or Microsoft, Azure, or even the Dell or IBM platforms. We chose AWS, and we went on to get our database of customers, about 9,000 of them. Our charging stations all migrated on the AWS cloud. And since then, it has been fine. On the public cloud, we are sort of very self-assured that there's already an existing system to ensure cybersecurity, to ensure that it's elastic in the sense that you'll be able to handle different kind of loads. So at that point in time, we have 9,000 motorists, but we are not sure the number that will be using our apps, our back end. So that's why we need elasticity in the system itself, in the sense that the load balancing will actually come on as as an automatic for us. So that was minimal in capex. But moving forward, we are definitely contemplating whether to move to a hybrid infrastructure, so as to be able to sort of handle the database of customers as well as charging stations by ourselves, sort of ring fence it to enable us to have more control on the user experience, you know, in the sense of latency, in the sense of communications as well as updating. That would be the next stage that we are contemplating. Of course, it will come with high capex and where the division of work actually comes in between the public and the private infrastructure.
Right. Thanks, good considerations, that is, you start something that is widely available, right? And then you move into the efficiencies again, basically, with the hybrid, but there are a lot of factors, and we'll come to that point shortly. But over to Jacky then, you've gone through consulting, you've gone through KrisShop as well, quite a fair bit of transformation over there. How about your considerations on and selection?
Okay, so for KrisShop wise, we are fully on the public cloud. So we're using both AWS and Azure as the services. One of the things that we recognize why we have to shift. Previously, we were on the on-prem cloud, so it's a private server. You need, like what Dr. Goh was talking about, capex investment, because you need to maintain the infrastructure, you need to have people doing the work, you need to make sure that the system is of HA, and then there's redundancy built in it. In the past, when we started, we don't have all these things. So it's an on-prem server sitting in a warehouse location. So we have to manually maintain it. The problem with this is 70% of our business actually relies on the in-flight sales. So without a scalable option, the chances of failure is high in that sense, because you have to maintain it, be it hardware failure and stuff like that. All this you have to manually maintain it. So the options that we fully move over will be the public cloud option, where we then build all our applications over in that sense. But of course, one thing to note when we move over to the areas on the security aspects of things, I think when we decide whether to use a public cloud or private cloud or even a hybrid, data security is one thing that we always consider first thing in hand. Whether there's any PII information that is in the whole process, whether there's any sensitive data that is being transferring through the network and stuff like that. So these are just one aspect that we have to take note of when we go into the public cloud. Yep.
Great. And if you could share a little bit more your experience, you talk about data security, it's still in a public space, something affordable for us. Any high risk or challenges that you have faced on the security front, Jacky?
Okay. When we are deploying things or stuff like that, I think a few challenge on maybe I would say IOT against the cloud is really about the network, because there's a lot of firewalls, there's a lot of blocking rules everywhere. So to deploy an IoT device in a network, we have to clear a lot of steps, be it MDM, manage the devices, opening specific ports just for communications and stuff like that. So these are the aspects that is a challenge when we are deploying IoT devices. Yeah.
Right. That's great. I think it's good point that, well, it's public, it's cheaper. There could be challenges, but I think the challenges is, what we'll think of is it's manageable, right? I think so that's kind of that beauty of it. Just to also share an experience here, we've been recently talking to Malaysia government, about track and trace, and they still have a concept that they want to keep servers, and we're talking about 500 million transactions per year. By the end of 5 years, we say realistically, you probably need to buy a building to maintain your servers, right? So that's kind of that old school. So, if you shape the future, going towards the future, what's best and cost effective? You have already a lot of living examples, my panel here, and as well as, within yourself. that would already quite consider the public cloud domain first, to kind of shape you out. I think we come to then a question that I think it's holding at heart. It's all good. We shape digital transformation. We talked about, IoT and cloud is probably not just the two elements within digital transformation. But if we just, this whole summit is about digital transformation, then what key elements that you think, I think digital transformation, it has its pros. It's good, we've heard about it. I think we've also have challenges along the way, right, Dr. Goh? So if you could share these challenges as you've built up this space, Yinson, how much you have to move into, what would actually then be that challenge and how you or the team and the company has actually tried to resolve these challenges?
I think one of the biggest challenge is that, while you are developing this infrastructure, there's also an expectation that, you have to serve your customers at the same time. So, you have got to do work on the, on your development server. In parallel, you got to have your production server catering to your ongoing customers as well as your internal stakeholders. So I think this is one of the biggest challenge we face, where you are working on your test servers, and at the same time, you're catering to the production server, and then you have to push some of the code that's ready to the production server. So making sure that, because it's mission critical, that the system don't go down. Otherwise, you get a lot of feedback on face. Nowadays, people cannot just feedback, say, hey, your charging station is not working, I just brought my EV all the way from point A to point B, I cannot charge, So these are the problems that we face on the EV infrastructure. And of course, right now, charging stations are in its infancy. You have many brands. You have brands from Exicom. You got brands from China. You have brands from all over. So although there are standards for conformance like the IEC 15118, you have we try to get our communication handshake protocol that sticks to OCPP 1.6J. Although you have all this, but basically sometimes there's a communication breakdown because, for example, under OCPP 1.6J, there are about 23 to 24 methods. So if between the back end and the charging station, there may be some problems, sometimes because charging station may not be able to acknowledge if a certain method or if a certain handshake transaction comes through, because simply that the charging station did not develop that particular method under the OCPP 1.6J. Yeah, sorry for being so technical. But, and for example, some of the chargers, they don't take on WSS, So the authentication protocol may be also open to cyber attacks. I won't mention which particular brands, but we have done a lot of chargers testing along the way. So this is another issue on endpoint security from the charging viewpoint. And also, of course, from the mobile apps, you're always open to hackers. So these are two of the challenges that are ongoing that we try to reinforce. Yeah.
Right. Thanks, Dr. Goh. I mean, looks like there's a lot to consider, the making sure it's up and running properly, making sure it's ready before moving into production. Am I 100% or can I work with a 70, 80, 90%, and still satisfy the requirements out there? And like you say, regulations, how to make that all connect and work and still within the regulations, there's a lot of factors that we need to consider. I think Jacky going through, organization change with digital transformation. I think, why don't you share with our audience then, that journey as well, together with the entire company to have that mindset change, in motion together with you.
Okay, so of course, one thing about transformation is not just purely on having systems and then things will work. One very big aspect is actually on the change management part, the people management. You can have systems deployed, you can have IOT devices deployed. People don't use it, or your organization doesn't use it, it's equals to useless. So one of the challenge that is always important to take note is about the change management and the people part of aspects. So people tends to resist change in general, because it changes their processes, it changes the way they do things originally, so they would feel uncomfortable. They wouldn't want to effect that change. But in the whole digital transformation aspects, it's not only just transforming the system, transforming the business, it's also about transforming the job roles of every individual that is doing what is, or what can, or they can perform better in another role. So one example is, I would like to share is actually on the in-flight, same thing on the in-flight sales part. So in the past we do, or even now we do collect cash from customers when customers make an in-flight sales. So the crew will then drop off all these cash envelopes in Terminal 3, the crew station, in a safe. So we'll drop it in. So from our end, we will then have Cisco police to go and pick it up, everything, and then bring it back to our office. And we have actually 8 to 10 cashiers sitting down, counting monies. So they're just counting monies and reconciling all those different currencies, and then eventually they deposit it. So in this process where we see, we have to look from the aspect that we can't be having these 10 cashiers sitting down there doing the same thing for the next 10 years. Right. It brings no value to their job. It brings no value to their future. So that's one of the areas that we have to look at, the transformation of their job as well. So by moving over to the pay now portion, so instead of people counting, the crew can just directly pay now to us. That is one of the things that we did. So we remove the needs for these 10 cashiers, but of course we don't put them out of the organization. We transform their role. They move on to the AP side of things, AR side of things, doing all the accounts portion. That's the upgrade that they went through. So that is my take on the whole transformation. It includes people as well, and people is important in that sense.
Yeah. I think it's a very good point. I think with efficiencies and one of the good things coming out from that, I think it reduces fraud. Someone technically touching money, literal money there. It's not just to get rid of people once something or a technology is replacing their role, but more shaping them together with you in the future and move on to something else. So like for myself, I used to come from compliance, so it's like, ooh, okay, this police woman here. But then, they've also revamped myself and moved on to a digital. It's how much forward thinking we also encourage and involve our own people, because people is your greatest asset at the end of the day. Okay. We want probably, I guess, a trivial thing. I think we've got just a couple of minutes, and then we will probably end off so that we don't hand off the deal with you. Trivial questions. Maybe I would say to Jacky first, if you had the chance to turn back the clock and start digital transformation once more, what will be your first step that you will take to do this? What's the very first thing that you want to embark upon?
Maybe, okay, so I think going through that process of transformation in the organization, why I keep bringing in about the people part of aspect is because I think at the start, our idea was to bring a system and then change the way the organization works so that we can develop new revenue, develop more opportunities for the company. But the whole process was missed out in terms of the change management. Yeah. So when we develop all these systems and all these IoT devices, the resistance of people using that system, although we calculated the whole process cuts down from 40 to 20 minutes, people feel that, hey, I still prefer my old processes. I think the manual way of doing things is still better. Yeah. So it's not the system does not help them, but it's more of really cultivating that digital culture and that digital proficiency within the organization. So if I were to turn back time, I think that will be the first thing we will actually do.
Get everyone on board.
Correct.
Right?
Get everyone on board, get all the stakeholders on board that this is the things that we are doing, what is their concerns, what is the thing that they feel can help in terms of the whole transformation. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's not an easy step. I mean, it takes a lot of awareness, a lot of maybe demos and show and tell and say how this would be different, but also giving that assurance at the end of the day, about their roles. And turning to Dr. Goh, you've got so much knowledge packed into you. If you have one person to recommend for us and the audience here to talk about digital transformation, who would it be? It can be you, but you'd like to tell us why.
Certainly not me. I mean, probably one of the esteemed member in the audience will be able to speak on this. Having said that, I think if just to answer your question about what would I do if, let's say, if I can go back in time, yeah. I think as everyone has felt about, it's about the greenhouse gas emission, and I think with digitalization it helps us to track the amount of carbon being emitted, how we can reduce it based on the process of sensors, as well as being able to measure how much greenhouse gas has been has caused this world, to have a temperature rise. I think if going back in time, this would be something that would be very meaningful for not only me, but for all of us in that area. And right now, everybody is fervently doing their part to try to reduce this GHG. And I think digital transformation plays a very big part to be able to track carbon footprint.
Right. That's important, I mean, for the overall environment, besides our commercial world going around. We want to keep this whole environment, for our future generations as less destroyed, and less problematic as we can, or even better than before. Okay. I probably then leave, the both of you, maybe Dr. Goh first, to share with them some key takeaways, right? So our audience here will want to go back and say, okay, if you could just share some key takeaways for them in terms of whether it could be digital transformation, IoT, or cloud, and how to make that eventuate or propel further in the future? Yeah.
Well, I think my key takeaway is don't buy an EV right now. Yeah.
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 Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I think the charging infrastructure is not ready, not ready in Singapore as well as in Malaysia right now. COE is also a bit high. It's not as mature as what you see in Europe. But by all means, because if you are really committed to try to reduce GHG emissions, I think that's fine. But the charging point infrastructure is not quite ready as yet. Electrification will take a bit of time. You still have the LTA tenders. LTA wants to put in about 60,000 charging points. Recently, they said that because of infrastructure, you can only put 2 in 1 multi-story car park. So yeah, we are all very excited about electric vehicles. I was just in Oslo, Norway, a couple of weeks ago, and well, the place is fantastic. Probably about 70 or 80% of vehicles are electric vehicles. You find instead of petrol stations, electric charging stations everywhere. But there's still a bit of time before we can actually catch up on electric vehicles. Although you see a lot of new models coming on stream in Singapore, I think that's a key takeaway point. But keep it within these 4 walls. Yeah, thank you very much.
So, with future, of course, we need catch up, that the infrastructure all needs to be in place to run it efficient. So I think, still we need some demand, hopefully some of them driving EV right now, yeah. And over to Jacky then, your key takeaways for our audience.
Okay, so for me, my key takeaway for the audience is I would like to quote something which is technology is an enabler for business to reach their objectives. So one analogy I would always like to use is actually about driving a car, which is kind of opposite with the autonomous vehicle. So your objective is to reach from objective A to objective B. So you need a mode of transport. And the technology is the mode of transport, of course, which is the vehicle. But the car doesn't move by itself. It doesn't drive by itself. You need people to be driving you need someone to be driving the vehicle. Of course, in the future, you no longer need any humans. But that's the analogy part that I would like to use is people is a very important aspect of making a business to reach the objective A to objective B, which is the transformation process. So, yeah.
Great. I really like these 2 guys. They talk about vehicles because I really like cars. I used to be a retired race car driver, so I cannot deal with autonomous. I need to park by myself without anybody parking for me. So technically, it kind of quite nicely sum up to say that. So, and my role, that's why I don't like brakes. So I accelerate and accelerate, accelerate. So once through transformation, you have to run fast so you don't be stagnant. Okay, otherwise your technology is going to be outdated very soon. I think we've had a very nice insights from both Dr. Goh and Jacky today. They've shared with you what digital transformation is about, how good the pros and cons, of IoT, cloud computing. It's quite a basic thing that we all have really in our daily lives, and we're just going through that motion without you guys doing it. Of course, cloud, right? So you can't see. It's not a server anymore. It speeds up space for us. So we've got to be used to that future. And I think the very nice sharing on both perspectives on the challenges that will need to bring forth when you think about transformation. Jacky brings forth a cultural mindset. I think that is really very key in an organization to change that mindset. And for Dr. Goh, that changing that mindset, getting you all to embrace the environment, those are another type of public awareness mindset change as well. So how do you advocate all these elements together within your organization as well, within the overall environment to help you shaping future in many different sense. And I think, we'd like to thank the both of them for their keen sharing today, and I hope you've learned a lot. And we're signing off together from the panel.
Fantastic.